And now we're joined by Robert Rosenthal from IlliniBoard.com, and we'll start by breaking down the defense a little bit. I think the biggest question this year is, what is the scheme going to look like? I think 3-4 has kind of been the talk around town. What do you think?
I think it's the great mystery because Bret Bielema doesn't want Nebraska to know anything. So you wonder if what he showed in the spring game was what they're going to come out in against Nebraska, or if that was just, something disguised as something else and they're going to do something different. I think the one thing that we know, because they hired an inside linebacker coach and an outside linebacker coach, is that they're going to take their defensive ends and they're going to make them stand up on the end, and they're going to be linebackers and they're going to chase tight ends. And that's the big difference, is the guys who were defensive ends last year, can they do that this year? Can they play this kind of different position?
Sure, and those defensive ends, now kind of the outside linebackers. What do you make of Owen Carney and Isaiah Gay stepping into those spots?
Yeah, I think, it's a little surprising. Owen Carney's 275 pounds on the roster, and you don't usually picture a linebacker being that big on the outside. But, for Illinois fans, you go back to Simeon Rice. He was a linebacker. He wasn't a defensive end. When he went to the NFL, he was a defensive end. But here, he played that same position. He was a stand-up outside linebacker in that defense. So it's been done before. It's going to be different. You don't really picture guys like that turning around and chasing a tight end 35 yards down the field, but they might have to do that. It'll be interesting, and maybe they throw some wrinkles, maybe they slide those guys inside, maybe they do some different things. We just don't know anything yet because he wants to keep it so secret.
The Illini are getting Jake Hanson back for another season. He's chasing the forced fumble all-time record right now. How important is it having him back with the team?
Yeah, I think anytime you go to a new scheme and you have the middle linebacker making the calls, you want a guy like Hanson who has 5 years of experience. This will actually be his 6th year because he missed a year with an ACL. So, a 6th-year guy, gosh, he's probably pushing 22, 23 years old at this point. That's the kind of guy you want in the middle, making the calls, making the reads, that type of thing. So that, in that sense, it's an ideal situation. You need a quarterback on the defense. You need somebody in there who's going to make the right reads, see what the substitution was, tell this corner, here's what's happening, and he's that kind of linebacker. So that's probably the best news from the spring was Hanson coming back for one more year.
Yeah, and safe to say he, of course, is going to start this season, but who do you think we can expect to see joining Jake Hanson in that linebacker position?
That's probably the most interesting position battle. They brought in Calvin Hart from NC State, and he's a Bret Bielema recruit. Bret went out and looked at the transfer portal and tried to find the guys that he thinks can do it. And so that's always something you want to pay attention to, is there's a new scheme, there's a new coach. If he goes out in the spring and pulls in a transfer, that's the kind of linebacker he wants that he didn't think was on the roster. So that probably gives him a leg up, especially since both Kaylon Tolson and Tariq Barnes are coming off pretty major injuries. They're still limited this fall or this summer in practice. And so when you have that, that's even more probably the advantage, since neither Tolson or Barnes had a chance to go through it in the spring. That's probably a better situation for Hart to maybe get that first start.
Sure, and a couple position changes happening within the whole team, but specifically with the defense, Vertice Brown moving to the defensive line. Yep. Do you think does he have some potential at that position? He
does. I mean, he played there his very first year. So in 2018, he was a defensive tackle. He was playing the same nose guard position. Last year, he spent the whole time blocking nose guards, so he knows both sides of the ball. It's an interesting switch, given that he was a starter last year. You don't usually see a sophomore starter then switch, but that's somewhat of an interchangeable position. The Illini fans have seen it happen before. Brandon Moore was a defensive tackle, same size, same kind of player as Brown. Went to the NFL, they saw him as an offensive guard, and he was an all-pro offensive guard who had never played that position. So it's kind of interchangeable on the interior there. You can play both sides of the ball, and Vertice certainly has the size. They want somebody right in the middle, right over the center, who's hard to move out of the way, and he's certainly that kind of guy.
The Illini are losing Nate Hobbs on the secondary. Who do you think can step in and fill that role?
Well, the biggest thing is moving Tony Adams back to cornerback. Tony he's gone cornerback to safety, and now back to cornerback. And it's probably his more natural position. They needed safeties last year. They needed a free safety the last year and a half. That's why he spent time there. So That's his job, is to get back to corner and fill in for, what we've seen. Nate Hobbs is making great plays in the NFL in the preseason already, so he's a hard player to miss. But you like having a fifth-year senior taking that spot. And then Devin Witherspoon is the other guy who has a lot of experience, has started a lot of games. It's time for him to step forward as well.
Do you think there's a player that might surprise us on the defense, or somebody that we should look out for?
I think it will be at safety, just because anytime you change schemes, and especially you change to this kind of scheme, I think they're going to use the safeties more differently than any other position on the field. And when you do that, they have maybe 6 safeties they're choosing from, and last year's starters might be elsewhere. We just don't know yet. And so if there's going to be a surprise, it's going to be somebody like Quan Martin, who started a few games at safety last year, but maybe they love him and he's their number 1 safety. Sidney Brown has started at safety for 2 years. Maybe they like him in some other position. It's going to be interesting to see how they run this defense, given that there's question marks all over back in the defensive backfield. And maybe we see one of the freshmen. Maybe we see somebody coming out of nowhere to be that safety to step up in this new scheme.
Sure. We'll go a little bit more big picture now. Do you think this is going to be an improved Illinois team?
I think it'll be improved. My brain goes to, I always, go back to former seasons. So I go back to the beginning of other eras. And, if we just go to the first year of new coaches, Lovie Smith's first year, 3-9. Tim Beckman's first year, 2-10. Ron Zook's first year, 2-9. Ron Turner's first year, 0-11. When schemes change over, a lot of times you see a lot of confusion at first. So that's the fear here, is just with everything new, with changing everything, it takes a while to adapt to the new schemes. I always reference other Big Ten coaches. Barry Alvarez turned out to be a great coach at Wisconsin. He only won 1 game his first year. Kirk Ferentz at Iowa has turned out to be a 20-year head coach. He only won 1 or 2 games his first year. Pat Fitzgerald has kind of rebuilt Northwestern. He took over a 7-5 team, and they went 4-8 his first year. And so there's just times when a new coach says, hey, we're going to change and we're going to do this, and it just takes some time. So it's an interesting conundrum, because on one side you have 22 super seniors, you have 23-year-old guys all over the field, who some are going to be in the NFL next year, and it's like, wow, that's a lot of talent and experience. They could do good. And on the other hand, you have, wow, first years usually are a bit of a mess at first as they learn what they're doing. So which of those wins out? I don't know. I can't tell you yet.
We never know. We never know. Maybe Bielema will be the one to break the first-year curse.
That would be incredible, yes.
But do you think a bowl game is out of the question for this team?
I don't think it's out of the question. I don't think I would put any money on it just yet, just because Illinois is bringing back the 22 super seniors. What other teams have done is they'll bring back 7 or 9, but it's the starters they're bringing back. So Illinois has 22 super seniors. Maybe 9 of those guys will start, and the rest will come off the bench. Minnesota brought back, say, 8 guys, and they're all starters returning. So there are other teams that have this same level of experience, and that will be the interesting thing of this season. If everyone is experienced and if everyone has players back, what's the team in the Big Ten West that really excels? And it's going to be interesting to see.
All right, Robert, thank you so much for your insight. As always, you can watch our full interview on WCIA.com, and make sure you tune in every Sunday during the season. Robert will be joining us there as well for our Sunday No Huddle segment that airs every Sunday at 10 o'clock.